The Democratic Alliance is calling for a probe into the building collapse. Joining me now is DA Federal Chairperson Helen Zille. Helen, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Let's just start off with some reaction from you, certainly on this announcement. In fact, we've just viewed, you may have seen moments ago, that individual being rescued after 6 days under all that rubble.
Unfortunately, I didn't see it, but I heard it, which was moving enough. And your reporter on the scene really gave a very vivid description of this miraculous discovery of another living human in the rubble that we could take out, or that they could take out, and that the rescue workers, very, very good professionals in disaster management, managed to bring out alive. When they started to move those heavy slabs, it was at a point where the thinking was that no one else could still be alive under there. And of course, moving the heavy slabs is particularly dangerous because it can shift the rubble below and then unwittingly cause further injury. But this person survived is a total miracle, and I'm sure he'll have an extraordinary story to tell. Hunger, thirst, freezing cold, crushed legs, the smell of other people's death around him. I mean, there can't be a bigger torture than that, what he's been through. And I keep on thinking, are there more people still alive under that rubble, and the hell and the torture they must have gone through? Too terrible.
You're absolutely right. But let's move on to other aspects of this conversation. And that one such aspect is that the DA has called for a thorough investigation into this building collapse. Now, what's evident already is that there is almost finger pointing, if you will, or certainly individuals or organisations that are trying to absolve themselves of any blame around this. How will the DA ensure that this investigation is not only thorough, but is also transparent?
Well, the best safeguard against any form of cover-up is the fact that there are going to be 4 investigations from different angles and from different sides. So if any one of those investigations tries to cover up, they won't be able to. The police are doing an investigation. The Department of Labour is doing an investigation. There is a professional from Stellenbosch in this kind of issue doing an investigation with all the help and support that he needs. And then there is an independent firm of consulting engineers that have never worked for the George municipality before. They're called V3 Engineering, that is going to be doing an investigation. So if anybody tries to do a cover-up, the other party will definitely find that there is something wrong. So that is the best safeguard against any form of cover-up. And I don't think it's tasteful or right for people to try and be absolving themselves from blame, but it's equally not right or tasteful for accusing someone when you don't have the facts. And so there are 4 investigations going on. We're absolutely committed to transparency, and let us see what they produce.
Why is it so important to have 4 separate parties carry out the investigation? And more importantly, why investigate? Is it because the loss of life? Is it the nature of the incident that has resulted in this sort of action?
Well, even if the collapsed building had not occasioned any loss of life, it would have to be gone into. I mean, the tragedy is that building collapsed 19 minutes after the lunch break ended. So the people had come back from lunch. If it had just happened 20 minutes earlier, that site would have been probably without any people on it all. The tragedy was that they'd just come back from their lunch break and then the building collapsed. So an absolute tragedy. And of course, we're going to get to the bottom of it, to the absolute bottom of why it collapsed. But it's important to investigate so that when we find out the cause of this, we can make sure it never happens again. And of course, we've already looked very closely into where this construction company and these contractors and these engineers are working on any other buildings so that we can go and have immediate inspections on them to establish that it's not something inherent to the people who are actually working on these sites.
There has been conversation about the legal status of some of the workers that were there, but the other important fact also would be the question around those that employed these individuals if they indeed did not have legal status to be in South Africa?
Well, indeed, if people don't have legal status to be in South Africa, you've got to ask the contractors. Did they check this? Did they follow legal processes? Contractor hires the workers, and the person or the government entity responsible for checking on this is the Department of Labour, which is a national competency. Provinces don't have departments of labour. There's only one Department of Labour, and that exists at national level. And they have labour inspectors who are supposed to come and do those inspections. So we're certainly asking those kinds of questions as well. But when you're pulling a life out of 4 stories of crushed rubble, you're only worried about saving a life.
What is the DA's stance on the role of local municipalities in overseeing construction projects such as this? Are they involved? I'd imagine they'd be involved at the start and obviously issuing various licenses, but in the entire process, just how much involvement is there?
Well, what municipalities do is that they have to look very carefully at the building plans and either approve or not, as the case may be. Now, as I understand it, those building plans were good and fine from a structural engineering point of view, from all points of view. And then when the building starts to get built, it is handed over to professional teams of architects, of construction experts, and of engineers, especially civil engineers. And it's that professional team that actually oversees the construction and the building itself. Obviously, construction engineers who are working on these sites and companies who employ professionals, architects, builders, etc., would have much more knowledge of all of these things than anybody working in a municipality. So we don't want red tape with a municipality calling things to a halt every 5 minutes to inspect with people who are less qualified than the people who are actually responsible for inspecting and checking. So that's why we hand things over to professional teams who are registered, who are qualified, and it's their job to make sure that they stick to the plan that was approved and that they do the job properly and to the right standard, and that they employ labour who's able to do the job and that is legally here in South Africa working. So those are the issues there. And of course, those will all be gone into in great detail in the investigations, plural, that are ongoing at the moment.
Helen, before we let you go, a word to all the individuals, the men and women that are part of this rescue team, this big operation that's been running for the last 6 days, trying to find survivors.
Well, I've been in George for much of the time, and obviously I've kept away from the site because we don't want politicians trampling all over it. It's a crime scene, obviously, and the last thing we want is politicians parading around there. But I have seen, sitting opposite the road, I have seen how the rescue workers have been working, how they are totally moved and shattered by the experience, and how they've been exhausted, working 24 hours before they've had some sleep in many instances, really doing the most extraordinary professional job with experts, with engineering experts who know how moving slabs might cause the structure beneath to collapse further. So this has been a very skilled operation with very skilled professionals, and I'm told by the people who know these things that it's been a world-class rescue operation. So thanks to from the bottom of our hearts to everyone who's worked day and night to save lives.
And thank you, Helen Zille, for making time for us today. DA Federal Chairperson, speaking to us on the back of that one individual who's been rescued.